Finally, to end this section, I want to talk about a very, very important topic. The topic of this lecture is arrays. This is a very difficult topic for beginners, so pay a lot of attention. Let's start at the beginning with the definition. An array is a container object that holds a fixed number of values of a single type. Okay, but what is that? Well, if I had to put it as simply as I could say that an array is a variable that can hold many values. In pink, you can see an example of an array. You first specify the type, just like a variable, but this time you write the basic type with the square brackets at the end. This means that now you are declaring an array. Then you write the name of that array, and as usual, you initialize it. But you must initialize this structure with the keyword new. We will see what this means in the next section. For now, think of it as something you need to write to create the array. Okay, so now you have the data type with the square brackets, the name, then the new keyword, and finally you must write the data type again with square brackets again, but this time inside the square brackets you must write how long is the array you are creating. How many slots, how many things, how many objects will this array hold inside. Once you have declared an array and specified its length, you cannot change that. Okay, now we know that an array is a container for values, just like a variable with multiple slots, and we know that once we have declared the length of that array, we cannot change that later. So, what we do then with that array? Well, after the declaration, we must fill all of those slots with values. In this case, I'm taking the array I just initialized in the last slide. Notice that when you create an array with a length of 10, we access the first slot or the first element using the index 0. And in this case, we access the last slot using the index 9. Be careful with that because although the array length is 10, its last element is not 10, it's 9. Just remember that because there can be a lot of confusion with this kind of stuff. As you see, it's not that difficult to access every slot in the array. You just write the name of that array, square brackets, and inside the square brackets you specify the slot you want to access. Every index corresponds to one slot in that array. The value contained in that index is called an element. The element at the index 0, in this case, is 100. Now we will see an example. This is the exact example that you will find in the Oracle Java documentation. You will find a link to that page in the resources associated with this lecture. Now let's talk about this example right here. This is what we saw in the slides. Here I'm declaring an array, and here I'm initializing that array. Here you can see the data type, square brackets indicating that this is an array, and this is the name of the array. A couple of lines below that, I'm initializing that array with the keyword new that we saw in the slides, and then the type of that array, in this case int, and inside the square brackets the length of that array. Then all I'm doing is filling those slots with different values, starting with the first slot in which I put the value 100, and then the second slot or the second element of the array in which I put the value 200, and so forth. Okay, here I'm simply printing all the values of the array. Here you can see that element at index 0, and I'm passing it the value of the first slot. As I said before, this is just like a variable with multiple slots, which can be accessed with this part right here. the square brackets, and then indicating the slot or the value I want to access. Okay, so this is all the code that there is. Now I click on the Run button, and I can see the results printed in the console. There is a very useful shortcut for initializing arrays, which is this one right here. This is the same array you saw in the last example. Here I'm declaring that same array, and here I'm initializing it. This creates the 10 slots and allocates these values. So this is the value of the first element, which we access using the index 0, and this is the value of the second element, and so on. And remember that you can make arrays of every data type in Java, including the by, short, and so forth. And you can even create arrays of objects, a concept we will see in the next section, which is all about object-oriented wizardry.